Now, we had one other short topic that Mike shared with us for the first 2 or 3 that were on. He's got some good news to share, and we're hoping that this news will develop into a presentation in our August 21st session. But Mike, why don't you go ahead and share your good news?
The new generator was successfully installed, and it is a great improvement over the generator that I had before. It didn't take 8 weeks as promised when they placed the order. It took 20 weeks, so 5 months wait. And just before it arrived, surprise, surprise, the RV guy that was working on my rig called me and said, guess what, just arrived. We were considering just putting an end to it. He was going to send me back the money. I said to him, well, you know, it's paid for, so just let it go. If you cut the order, then I go back down to 0. So we're glad we did that because it arrived. He did surprise me that he wanted me to leave the rig, which was not so bad. It's an hour away, so I troubled a friend. And we left it. The next day, he called back and said it's all done. It went rather smoothly. He did move some of that plastic plumbing around because he called it. You know, he told me at first that might happen, and he called it. He said, if the top of the new generator gets very close to the plastic plumbing that happened to be in that spot, it would be safer to just reroute it. It was no big deal, didn't cost much in labor. So he moved the plastic plumbing away from the top. It does say in the manual that there has to be a certain clearance all around the generator because of heat, etc. So, excuse me, it was successfully done. It was a real pleasure to just touch the button and hear the thingy come on. And then it says in the manual, just give it 2 minutes before you put the load on it. Sure enough, in 2 minutes, put the air conditioner on high and just smooth, just started it right up. You know, that was a big problem from my old generator. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Noise level is very hard to describe in words, but sitting inside the RV with no load on the generator, I could not tell you if it was on or not. And that's amazing. With the load on it, yeah, you could hear it. Okay, but it wasn't rumbling and shaking and all that nonsense that the old jalopy was doing. When you go outside, if you're on the opposite side from the muffler, it was really good. Okay, the sound was quite acceptable. If you turn the other side of the rig where the muffler's coming out, that I could best describe as a lawnmower with a really good muffler on it. Okay.
Question for you, Mike. Which generator are you referring to? Is that the Onan 2800 undermount?
Well, I happen to have it right here.
Or did you get the new inverter one?
I got the new. No, it's a replacement for the generator. Let me get it's 2.5, I believe. Yeah, 2.5, and it's the propane version.
But it's the Onan Cummins model?
2020.
Okay.
2020 Onan's Cummins model. And
okay.
If you want me to give you the code that's part of the name, I'd be happy to do that.
Go ahead.
2.5 HGLAA hyphen 8304. Now, verify that because the one that I ordered, of course, was LP. So
okay.
That's the way I was set up originally. So, you know, a friend of mine put in a refurbished generator, spent a lot of money on labor, etc., and it cost him $3,000. This cost me $3,000 for purchase and about $1,400 with install, shipping, taxes, etc. But I ended up with a brand new generator with modern specs, and he ended up with an old generator's specs. Okay, and 6 months later, it died. So he spent all that money and had no progress. So I thought this was the right way to go. I took a risk. I didn't know the dealership, but excuse me, but he assured me that he had a guy that does this stuff. So it came out well, and he's going to, I don't know how long a presentation he'll do, but Doug has asked me to invite him, and he's never done anything like this before. He's the guy in charge of service at a big RV sales / service center in Hemet, California. Why is that relevant to you? Well, you know, if you folks often travel this direction, Southern California. If you were in LA, it's an hour. If you were in Palm Springs, it's an hour. You know, if you were in Arizona, it's a couple of hours.
Oh my God, okay.
You know, so you might, when you're in this part of the country, in the US, you know, it's good to know that there's a place that can handle, you know, he was not intimidated by the task at all. You know, he doesn't work, I mean, I guess he works on Class A's also, because I saw every kind of rig in this parking lot. But yeah, he did it. You know, he has an account with Onan. When he called them, he put in a code and a human being answered. But they never returned a phone call again because they didn't deliver in 8 weeks. And he never was able to get feedback from them about the status of the order. And it was 20 weeks and the thing showed up. So Onan obviously had a challenge meeting their demand for this product. So by the way, this is the 2020 version, not the 2013 version.
Mike, what about the model road truck you have and the fit? Because I would have done this in a heartbeat as soon as the new product was available, except for it does not quite fit in the exact space mine has.
Okay,
And
so
also,
that was their call. Okay, I brought the rig there months ago, and his generator guy crawled down underneath the rig and looked at the brace that was holding the old one and how it was, you know.
which model?
Mine is on a Sprinter, so it's a 2008 RS Adventurous. The point is, regardless of what the vehicle is, somebody's got to get down underneath there and see the brace, okay? Because my brace was adjustable. Okay, then he took the measurements off the spec sheet and he looked at the plumbing and said, okay, this is how we're going to do it. Because it has to be customized, I assume, for each model.
Did you say that
By
you
the way,
were,
very important point that I didn't mention. He saved my clearance. Okay, that was the dealio. I said, I can't accept the new generator to be lower than the original because you'll be taking away from my clearance, which I already felt kind of deprived of. You know, the RS Adventurous is, you don't really have much clearance underneath there. But I stood in the back and I looked down, and it absolutely was no lower than anything else that's in the rig.
did you say your original generator, Mike, was propane also?
Yes.
So it would be a bigger job for those of us that have gasoline fired Onans now.
Well, the whole point is that he was saying to me all along, should be a swap out.
Yeah. It
Well,
would
I
not
think
be for the rest of us.
I think also, Gene, that it's not an issue because you just order a gasoline generator rather than propane. You can order it either to run from gas or propane, and even diesel. So that's not an issue. If we're on gas, we just order the gas version and it hooks right up to our gas tank.
The only thing, a little tricky thing was, you know, now the meter inside the rig doesn't say 000 the time ticker. Okay. So he said he'd see if he can get me one and ship it to me. He says it's a real easy replacement because it's at my advantage to say, hey, this is a brand new generator. But if it says 260 hours, it doesn't look like a brand new generator. But I called Onan on that, and they answered that if I write it out, you know, I took a picture of the meter, and he said, write it out with your receipt that the generator was replaced at 260 hours. It's as good as saying it's new. Someone else was waiting.
Okay, so let's not encroach on Mike's presentation for next month. We'll cut it off there and open it up for anybody who wants to talk about anything else before we wind up.
Hey, I got one strange event.
Go ahead.
I have a 94 road trek, and in the side compartment where your city water is, there's 3 valves in there. One to feed the city water to the freshwater tank, and the other 2 is the low point drains on the water system. Okay, so one of those low point drains got the leaking on me. So I decided I'm going to replace all those valves because they're all original. So I ordered 3 new, they're Quest QV401s, or the other part number for it's the same thing as a 53954. Okay, so I get the new valves. I ordered them from Phoenix because I live in Ohio, and anyhow, that's where I got them. And I put them all in, but before I put them in, I blew on the valve to make sure that it was off and on was correct, and everything seemed normal. I put things in, do all the hookups, and turn water on to my city water fill, and I could not shut the valves off. If you shut them from on and off, all it did was lower the pressure a little. So I thought, well, that's a bummer. So I pulled the whole assembly out and hooked it up to the city water, only to discover that the stems in the valves were not in the right location to shut it off. So I loosened the handle, pulled this back a little off of the stem, and then I could rotate the thing any position I wanted. And I found a position where it's on and off correctly. And so then I just took the screw out of the handle and realigned it with the proper spot, and that solved the problem. But that's a real bummer because you buy a new valve, you expect it to be right. So I sent a note to the dealer in Phoenix where I bought him, and he said, thanks for the info, and he'll notify the manufacturer of that. But that was a real bummer. It threw me for a loop for a little bit, and so I just thought I'd pass that along.
Wow, that's quite an intriguing process you went through there. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, it took, instead of an hour or 2, it was all afternoon project.
Very good. So
That's all I got.
Any other comments or questions?
Well, I always have stories to tell, but it's really a matter of whether anyone wants to hear about them or not.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, my generator issue is that I decided I wouldn't go new because the cost of the new generator itself, while a lot, isn't really the problem. I mean, I'm sure I can easily put that much money back into repairing the old generator. So the issue for me is what has to be done to the road trek to replace it. So I didn't choose that route and chose instead to replace all the parts of my generator, make sure it's like new. And I did that when I had issues with it holding a load. And after 9 hours of labor and getting it running on the table, the RV place put it back in, and it wasn't working. It was working beautifully on the table, but not in the road trek. So then they realized that it wasn't the generator itself or any of its brand new parts. It was the gas or the fuel line. So they replaced the fuel line and sent it home, and it worked beautifully one time. After that, it started giving me problems again. So I have it back at the place, and they've been very good about saying it's their reputation. They'll figure this out. And they have put a second fuel line into their own gas tank, and it runs beautifully. In my camper, it runs beautifully on their gas, but not my gas. So they're telling me it's bad gas. And I said, it's not this tank of gas, because this tank of gas is non-ethanol. It's got seafoam in it. It's good gas, the whole bit. And the problem has been months and months and months. So it's not a one bad tank of gas. Now they're telling me that the seafoam has probably eaten away the lining of the gas tank, and I probably need a new gas tank. It's just a vicious cycle. But I think ultimately what has happened is I preemptively had the fuel pump replaced in the gas tank. Wish now I hadn't, but eventually it would have had to been done. I believe that in that process, probably have stirred up a tremendous amount of sediment, and the fuel filter in that pump has handled it well, but the generator can't handle that amount of sediment. I have less than half a tank of gas that's probably loaded with sediment in the tank right now, and I'm going to pick it up from the RV place, and I'm just going to drive the gas out. And
It's easy enough to change the fuel filter of the generator that they could rule that out.
Well, they did that. As a matter of fact, what they did was they put one in that they could watch happening, a non-Onan one. And it as soon as they put it in, they ran it on their gas fine. They ran it on my gas, and it clogged up right away.
The other possibility is a pinched fuel line in your camper so that your fuel is just not getting to your generator. That's something that would need to be ruled out.
Yeah, they did. They ruled that out, and they're sure it's just bad, not bad gas, but
too much sediment.
Corroded gas or corrupted gas. So I think I won't do any harm to the vehicle itself by running that tank out, getting it. I never run below a quarter of a tank, but I'm going to now. I'm going to run it down as low as I can, refill it with non-ethanol, so I don't use any seafoam, and do that several times before I even try the generator again, and see if I can literally clean the gas tank out by just using up the gas that's in there now. Otherwise, dropping it and flushing it again, maybe. The one guy was concerned that I've actually ruined the inside of the tank and might need a new tank. Not worrying about that yet. But I think the route of running that tank down several times and refilling with good, clear, new gas should help. Does that sound reasonable?
But doesn't that assume that whatever this crud is, it will be in suspension?
If you use it, I don't know, but are you saying that using it up won't help?
Well, I think it'll help, but I still think you could have a layer of unsuspended crud in the bottom, unless you're, constantly, maybe take a bumpy road at the end or something.
That's what I would do. That's what I would do. And that may
Debbie, it's not that difficult to pull that tank. Like less than an hour would pull that tank, run it to empty, take it somewhere that's got a hoist, have them drop the tank, turn it upside down, flush it out, and then you know where you're at. Like if it was a larger job, I would go with your suggestion or thoughts, but for like an hour or two's worth of labor, I would get to the bottom of it and eliminate that totally. And you're also ignoring the fact that all this crap going through your engine is not healthy for your engine in your van. So if you're going to try and clear crud out by burning it through your engine, I'm not sure that's what I would choose to do. I'd be more apt to drop that tank and dump it, like run it down to empty, as empty as you feel you can go. And then, I mean, I've seen mine drop twice, and it's not a big job as long as it's not full of gas.
Yeah, okay. And dropping it should not be a problem now, because all of the braces and bolts are fairly new, because it was dropped a year ago to do the fuel pump. And of course, my first concern, and the RV place too, was did they flush it when they replaced the pump? But I've spoken with the place that did that, and they said that they did. So he's the one that's suggesting there's something wrong with my tank, and he's the one.
What's the definition of flushing, though?
Yeah.
That may mean one thing to somebody and something different. Like flushing to me is totally emptying the tank and running something through it to rinse it out. And if they didn't totally take it off and turn it upside down, that wouldn't be my term of flushing. And when I've seen them replace my tank, they don't remove the tank. They just drop the straps. The tank kind of falls down on about a 45-degree angle. They take the old one out and put the new one in. So if you're not turning the tank upside down and rinsing it out, that doesn't meet my definition of flushing, but maybe others have different definitions.
My position is to get the tank down and have it totally flushed out, and you'll be good to go, because just refilling it and running it out is not going to get rid of the crap that's in the tank. That's not, you know, there's a filter in the fuel pump. It's not going to pull all that stuff through, or it'll clog it up. So it's to solve your problem once and for all, get the tank off, have it totally flushed out, and I think you'll be good to go. Because they already proved it works good on their gas and not yours. So nip it right now and be done with it.
But did they show that, I mean, you're saying get it flushed out because the gas is bad, which is totally a different issue than sediment, because if they were watching the fuel filter when they were running it off your gas tank, and if the fuel filter stayed clean, there is no sediment to speak of. And so then the issue is the quality or type of gas, theirs versus yours. And that's a really interesting thing to ponder, because these lawnmower type engines will run on practically anything. So you'd have to have some pretty bad fuel, like water mixed in it or something, for that claim to be valid. I would really wonder, when they said they ran it off their fuel and it worked okay, were they using the same fuel filter? Was the fuel filter okay in both cases, clean and clear for theirs and yours, or not? Those are things, you know, to figure out. Bad gas is really an uncommon thing.
So this brings up another point, Mike. If you could brief your Onan guy when we're going to do our session, hopefully on August 21, it would also be helpful if you can just tip him off that there may be additional generator questions that come up in addition to your new generator, because it seems as though this is quite an engaging topic for many of us. So hopefully he might entertain questions on Onan generators in general. We would start off with the new version and the new installation, but I can see that the question period would very quickly lead to the current vintage generators as well. So you can just give them a heads up to anticipate some of those questions. That might be useful.
Doug, I think like when I asked hard questions, he brought in his generator guy.
Okay.
You know, he's the service manager, and he deals with all kinds of RVs, you know, on a general level. Okay. And then he has people that, you know, experts on different things. So you're right. I will mention that to him and see if we can get the generator guy involved. Yeah,
great. Thank you. So any other passing comments or thoughts before we wind up, folks? I think we've had a bonus topic here on today's session with the generator discussion, and we could talk all day or all weekend about generators with the various issues that we've had. But hopefully in August we can cover that in more depth with an experienced technician, and hopefully Mike will be able to put that together. So any other thoughts or comments?
One comment, if you don't mind, Doug. You know, we all have different rigs. They were based on vans that came out of the factory. Mine's a Sprinter. I just had this conversation just this week when I brought it in, because it was just too hot for me to go wash. It was 110 degrees. So I brought it to a place. I had a problem with one panel, the panel that covers the engine. and then they misunderstood me. You know, my rig is 14 years old. It gets stored outdoors in the hot desert sun. Mercedes put something wonderful on that vehicle. Most times, all I have to do is rinse it with water. Okay. And, you know, and then once a year, I just have them do that spray on wax, that kind of thing. And it's amazing. So they were talking before about the clear coat, not to be discounted or underestimated how wonderful clear coat is. You know, though my rig is made in Dusseldorf, Germany, and I can't believe how well it has stood up. Knock on wood, I don't want to jinx myself, but how well it has stood up to the environmental conditions here in the desert. And then that fiberglass that I have all around, that was painted, and I had an issue where I had to get it repainted. And that guy told me he put, I don't know how many coats of paint on that fiberglass. Because he knew, he's local, he knew that it was going to be stored in the hot summer sun. And everything so far has stood up pretty well. So, of course, my roof is metal. But clear coat should not be underestimated. I mean, that stuff is amazing compared to what we used to have to go through years ago with the, you know, losing the finish on your car, if you remember. Anyway, I just thought I'd comment on that. You know, if you have good clear coat, that's important stuff.
So that basically is what I'd like to do to mine when I do get it done. I'd like to strip it of every decal and polyglow and everything and have the finest paint product applied so that what you're doing is all I need to do.
Debbie, is your rig a fiberglass 210 or one of the 190s that are more metal?
190, mostly metal, fiberglass roof and skirting.
Yeah, because it's different products are needed for fiberglass versus metal, and the 190 is definitely a hybrid that way. So you can't literally expect the same paint and performance on the two different surfaces. They are different, and whoever's going to paint the rig has to use the right stuff on the right part of the rig, because they're not the same. You know, if you strip fiberglass down to bare fiberglass, you're dealing with a different base than you're dealing with metal. And your Sprinter has a metal roof and metal body, so it's all the same.
Is there not some form of a primer that pre-coats it all and makes it all the same?
I'm not a paint expert, but that's certainly a great question to ask of whomever it is that you choose to do the work. But they are very different surfaces that I can't imagine that you can treat them the same way and get the same result. You know, it's something to ask some good questions of whomever it is that's going to paint the rig. And also depends where you live. Being in the desert is a really extreme climate. If you're not in the desert, it may be less of an issue.
Well, Craig's comments seem to indicate that a boat epoxy paint on the roof would be appropriate. And that's different from what would go on the sides.
That's right. Yeah, because boats generally are fiberglass, which is the same as the roof of a 190, or in my case, the whole back end of the 210 is all fiberglass.
Yeah, I think it's well known that you have different paint products for fiberglass compared to metal. And Debbie, to answer your question, regardless of the primer, that doesn't change the substance of the product underneath the primer. And as Craig mentioned, the porousness of the fiberglass is the major difference. And so therefore, as Gary said, different products depending on the base that you're covering. So any auto person though knows the difference because they're painting fiberglass Corvettes and fiberglass truck hoods every day of the week. So this is not something that an experienced auto body man wouldn't know about. So it's a fairly common process these days to be painting part of a vehicle with fiberglass and part of the metal with a different paint. The biggest problem they have is making sure that they got a color match on the tones of those paints when they're different products. But when you get into white or other colors, it's not quite as hard to match as it would be darker colors.
Still worth asking.
Oh, of course. Yes, absolutely. Ask.
Kathy has a question. Kathy Nelson has a question.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Hi, thanks, Debbie. My question was for you, Debbie. You said you had the fuel pump changed in your rig. My understanding is the fuel line for the generator comes from a different spot because it has the leveling. If it goes below a quarter of a tank, it doesn't use your gas. Is there any chance that they pinch that line or kink that line? Because you said the fuel runs, but you see, like Gary said, there's no sludge or anything. To me, it would sound like it's not getting fuel from your tank. If you were to take the line off of the fuel pump that runs to your tank and put it into a gas can at your rig, does it run then?
Yeah, they did. Oops, my muted note. They did check that, and what they found was that they replaced the fuel line. It's been replaced twice, I think, hopefully correctly. And I believe that they actually saw the generator's fuel filter fill with sediment coming through my fuel line. So it is getting gas and it is getting the sediment too. So, I mean, that they supposedly checked it.
Yeah, well, I agree with Doug fully. I would have them take the tank off and not run it through, because you're going to have, valve issues and issues in your motor if you run that sludge through your own engine.
Okay, going to do that.
Okay, any final parting comments? We've got some people who've sat there very quiet today and haven't said much. Let's give them an opportunity to share any thoughts they have before we sign off. I really do solicit your help in organizing presentations going forward. So with that, I will bid you a great weekend. I hope it's been worthwhile today. And please do chat when this comes on. Please do chat and make comments on the videos, because a lot of people complain to me that they didn't see them or they don't see the notices when they come up. And the way Facebook works is it will share the info based on the likes and the comments. Comments are, likes are the bottom, comments are second, and then sharing to your friends are the top. So Facebook algorithms work based on the comments and the likes and the shares. And the more of those we have, the more importance Facebook puts it towards sharing with others. So if we can get some more engagement on the sites, then people will be more aware of these events and they won't miss them, okay? So, all right.
Thank
So
you for all that you do, Doug.
Oh, yeah.
You're most welcome.
Thank you so much. And I will try to be a little more creative and come up with some ideas, but boy, I don't have that mind that you do. So, you know what, I might see if I can make contact with the originator of Boondockers Welcome. She has another from years and years ago, and maybe we can get some, that would be a good one. So
yeah, absolutely. Both Boondockers and Harvest Host, and even though they're now joining in terms of ownership, it sounds like they're going to still run independently. So maybe we get one of each at some point. As I said, I did reach out previously to Harvest Host, but I was disappointed in no response. And I've also reached out 2 or 3 times to Road Trek, but one of my contacts there has hesitated. And quite honestly, to ask somebody to prepare something and take a Saturday morning, isn't, if they're not in the road trekking or the RVing mode, it may not be as important to them as it would be to us. And obviously, if we're road trek owners and we're on here, that's part of our interest, but not all share that. So everybody has their own things to do, and that's just the way it is. So yeah, that would be great, Debbie, if you can do that.
Right.
So in the meantime, we'll look forward to hopefully having a generator session on the 21st of August. And Mike, if you just confirm that with me, and we'll get organized. You've got a month to work on it, so hopefully that'll come through okay. And whatever way works well, I'll help you in whatever way I can. Be nice if we could get some photos, maybe put into a little PowerPoint or something to show people what it looks like, how they installed it. And if you got any way to get any photos of your installation, and maybe even how they changed the water lines might be of interest to some. But you know, you can only do what you can do. And great to see Mr. Phillips on here. He's the one who I think's used Polyglow the most. And if you ever get a chance to visit him or see his rig, it just looks like an airplane cockpit in the seat of his van, because he's also a big
Ham radio.
ham radio operator, and he's got his ham radios all connected to the internet. And so he can talk to you on his ham radio over the internet, over the cell phone. So one day we'll get Lauren. I was just talking about you, Lauren. We'll get you to give us a tour of your van sometime. I've been fortunate to be with Lauren in the past and have a personal tour, but maybe Lauren, sometime if you can figure out how to do it, you can give us a tour of your van. And it's the most loved and cared for road trek that I've ever seen. And I'm even going to say that it's almost his mistress. Lauren's road trek is his mistress. And for an old guy, he's treating it every day with tender, loving care. So good for you, Lauren.
Hey, Mike, or Doug, I'm going to be 90 in a couple of weeks. And,
wow.
yeah, and then later on the 24th, I'm going up to the Oshkosh Air Show for a week. And then I'm going to do I got to pick up a ham amplifier up in Green Bay.
Oh, I'm
Wisconsin.
listening to this road trek thing.
Just a minute, I got
It's
to
almost
mute.
over.
Okay, go ahead, Lauren. Sorry for that interruption.
So after the air show, I'm going to head north, and I got to pick up a radio amplifier in Green Bay, and then I'm going to go up into Michigan and come down across the UP into the bridge. And then on the 7th of August, since I'm going to be in Oshkosh for my birthday, which is the 27th, I'm having a birthday party on the 7th of August. And then on the last week of August, I'm heading to the West Coast again because my granddaughter's getting married on Labor Day. So I'll be gone about a month on that trip. So then in November.
Did you say you were inviting us to a party on August the 7th?
How many, Lauren, how many miles? How many miles on your road trek?
It's almost 345,000. And I got to tell you, that road trek does not have a single rust spot on it.
Oh.
It's always garaged, and any little thing comes up, I take care of it. So anyhow, it's a great machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Lauren is one that we can all aspire to replicate.
Working on it.
Good for you, Lauren.
Thanks for the accolades.
Yeah, good for you. So we'll look forward to seeing you on August 21st, hopefully a generator presentation. And I'm sure that'll be a live discussion and very informative. And so in the meantime, stay safe out there. We hope that COVID continues to stay away from you. Be safe, don't be careless, and continue to wear your masks and isolate where necessary, and get your shot if you haven't, okay?
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, take care.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
All right.
Bye.